Aloha, I'm Shirley Ujimori. I'm the head pastor and prophet of the Heart of Christ Church. And I wanted to share with you today my testimony of how I came to be with the Lord. It goes way back when I was a child, but I'm going to come to more current times. I was going through a dark time in my life. I was married. I had 2 children. And my marriage in the beginning was really good. But as time went by, our marriage started to fall apart. And towards the end of my marriage, I decided to leave with my children. What happened was I went into a deep depression. I started to feel unwanted, unneeded, unloved. And what I was going through was too great for even my husband to handle. He couldn't understand where I was coming from, what I was feeling, though I tried to convey it. I conveyed it through anger, resentment, and sometimes yelling and hatred. So I decided to leave with my children. And as I left them, and I took them, we moved into Makakilo. Time went by and we got divorced. Within a year we were divorced. And when I reflected back, today I reflect back, I can see where I was at that time. One day, as my life was going forward, I could not see life anymore. It seemed like everything around me was just falling apart. My marriage was now gone. I felt alone, unloved. My family was far from me, thinking I was possessed. I was always angry, always upset at everything. And then there was my children. In spite of my shortcomings, they were too young to understand what I was going through. And I tried to deal with my daily life as the best that I could. But it got to a place that the depression got too great. The darkness got too deep. The bottom I could feel already. And I just couldn't take it anymore. So one day I thought into my own spirit, I thought in my own mind, this world would be better off without me. My children would be better off without me. And I decided to take my own life. When I had come to that conclusion that this world was just greater without me, I planned it all out. I had peace in my own heart about what I was doing. I had peace in my own mind that what I was doing was right. That my children would be better off. My children would be happier. They would see more things. They would be able to do more things with their father and with their father's family because they were better off than my own family. So with that in mind, my ex-husband came to pick up the children for the weekend. And I had already set to take my own life in my own heart. He took the kids and they left. And I said my goodbyes without them even understanding what was going on. And they left. That afternoon I drank. I drank until I was bombed. I had peace in myself because tonight was the night that all this unhappiness, all this darkness, all this sorrow, all this hatred would leave me. And I would finally have peace in my own soul. Suddenly my phone rang. And it was an old friend. I only knew him for about 3 years or so. I had met him over the internet. Can't quite remember his name, but his first name was Derek. And he had called me that night. And because I really didn't have family checking on me, my friends were all gone. My ex-husband was far from me. It surprised me that my phone even rang that night. So I picked it up. And there he was, an old friend. But he had called me in despair. He had called me in darkness. His heart broken. I could hear the tears rolling down his face as he told me his story about feeling depressed, about feeling resented, unwanted by his family, because he was a homosexual. And he didn't feel like his family would accept him. And as I heard his cries, my heart went out to him. And I spoke to him and I told him I loved him. And I cared for him. and that life is worth living. We just have to find that silver lining. That there is someone out there who loves us. Someone out there who cares for us. And that we just have to stand stronger just a little while longer, and it would show itself. When we were done with our conversation, and we said our goodbyes, I told him I would talk to him later. And I hung up the phone. What I didn't realize is my heart opened to him because of his darkness, that I forgot about mine. When I reflected back that night, I couldn't understand why now I could not take my life. Now there was somebody, there was someone who actually cared. Someone who needed to be cared for. Someone who needed to feel love. And I decided to live. And I couldn't understand why. Why, after I had peace in my own heart, that life wasn't worth living, that I would choose to live again. And I cried all that night and all that weekend. And one morning I had awakened, and I heard this song playing. I could hear the music surrounding me, and it was a song I remember from when I was a child. The why is called Kanaka Vai Vai, but it's actually called Walk Through Paradise. It's about walking with God and allowing Him to be our Lord. To allow Him to take our hand and lead our way. To give up our earthly treasures. To know my vanity. To know how to love. To know how to share. And when I heard that song, it reminded me when I was a child. My mother used to play that on the album just to get us up for school. And I heard the song echoing, and I cried and I cried. And the song kept playing all day long in my spirit, around me and in my head. And it kept going day after day. I cried and I cried, and I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand why. Why was I hearing this song? Why was I crying so much? Why was my heart so yearning, longing, looking? What was going on with me? And all of a sudden I had a vision. And in this vision I saw this little house. And it was funny because I knew this house. It was a house that was along the street that you would see as we drove to my mom's house. I've known this house for many, many years when I was a child. So when I saw it in the vision, I knew exactly where it was. So I went. And I remember it was a Saturday morning. And I went and I drove to this house. I got out of my car and I looked at the house. And I remember saying, I don't know why I'm here, but there's a reason. And I walked into the yard. When I looked to the left of me in the yard, there was a big sign. It was a house church. I didn't know that. And a man came out to greet me. And when he came out to greet me, he remembered me. I was a familiar face to him, and he was to me too. He remembered me from when I was a child, when I used to deliver the newspaper. And he asked me how I was and how was my brother, because they were good friends. I said that he was fine. Then he asked me, he says, what can I do for you? And me realizing that I was at the church, I said, I don't know. But could I talk to the pastor? He said, that's my mom. Why don't you go wait? Why don't you go wait in our sanctuary, which was a patio, an open patio that had pews and a pulpit. And he says, why don't you go sit in there? I said, okay. And I wasn't crying, and I was strong. And I said, all right. I shall wait. And I went in there, and the moment I stepped in, I cried. I couldn't control myself. I just cried. And I cried, and I cried. When the woman came up, she looked at me and she says, Sister, what's the matter? I said, I don't know. I don't know, and I don't know why I'm here. I just know I had to come. She said, let me pray for you. So she brought out a chair, and I sat down, and her son and her daughter came. They laid hands upon me, and they prayed. And at that moment, I felt a lifting. I felt a freeing. I felt like whatever was upon me, whatever was holding me down, whatever was shaking me up, had left me. And it felt like God took a bucket of water and He threw it on me. And I felt so free, so clean. And I stood and said, I can't believe this. I feel so free. And when the woman stopped praying, she looked at me and she said, you're the one. And I looked at her and I said, what are you talking about? And she looked at her son and her daughter and she said, do you remember the other night? She's the one. And I said, what are you talking about? And as her daughter and son nodded and knew what she was talking about, she turned to me and she said, about 3 days ago, we had Bible study. And one of the ladies in the church got up and started to speak as God led her. And she said that God told her this woman would be coming who was in bondage. And they needed to set her free because God had a plan. I was that woman that God told them was coming. From that day I was set free from the burdens of this life, from the darkness of my pit and the depression of my soul. I was set free, free. And now I understood who set me free. You see, we get in this place sometimes and it seems like this world would be better off without us. People don't really love us. People don't really care for us. But I want to tell you different. There is a God out there who knows your darkness, who knows your sorrow, who knows your struggle, and He sees all things. He is waiting to deliver you, wanting to set you free. If you would just look up and allow Him to do so. I want to ask you to be strong. Those of you out there who feel this way, that your life is taking you in a direction of darkness, and you feel like you're in the pit of hell, the bottom where there is no more bottom, that God is reaching out His hand to you. I want to encourage you to reach up and grab a hold of Him. He will set you free, even if you don't call on His name, because I didn't call on the name of the Lord. I didn't know Him. But yet, in all His mercy and all His grace, He knew me. And He saved me. I didn't even ask for His help. I refuse to serve this world. I refuse to serve the men of this world. But I will serve the God who knew and heard the cry of my soul and set me free. God can do the same for you. This is my testimony from dark into light, and I refuse to let the light go. So I pray that you will be encouraged by this and know, even when you don't cry out, God knows.